Limbus company.
놀러 나갈 때는 아침 일찍 나가야 한다니까. 자는 시간은 매일 같은데 조금이라도 늦게 나가면 손해보는 기분이잖아.
Limbus Company is a turn-based game developed by Project Moon, a South Korean game company. This game is a quote-unquote sequel to Project Moon's previous game, Library of Ruina, and it's definitely one of the more unique games in the gacha industry, if not in general. In this video, I'm going to list the pros and cons of the game and make a conclusion based on what I think of them. Limbus has a lot of unique points that set it apart from other gachas. One of them is the game's atmosphere. Like its predecessors, Limbus Company is rated 19 here in Korea, mature global-wise. But unlike the majority of gacha where the mature rating is due to skin exposure, Limbus got its rating from flesh exposure. When was the last time you see people turning into lumps of bloody flesh in a gacha game? Never, perhaps. There's also the absurdity of the characters' personalities and actions, like how early on in the story, one of your companions slit the necks of your other to companions because they were too loud, then another one of them pierced the former's entire face with her lance. There's so many examples of this, but it's best to leave it at that so you can see them yourself. Then there is the game's world itself, the city. Again, I won't talk much about it because it's better if you play the game yourself, but I just want to say this, the city is probably one of the worst worlds to live in among gacha game worlds, if not among game worlds in general. The gameplay is also unique compared to other gachas. Whereas combat in gachas tend to put away RNG as much as possible, Limbus makes RNG one of its key points in the form of coin flips. Frankly speaking, this makes the game much more interesting as even the most immaculately built strategy can be toppled by a single RNG flop, similar to games like Fire Emblem. The way the gameplay is also stand out among other gachas because I don't think I've ever seen a gacha, hell, any game in general that has similar combat structure as Limbus other than its predecessor. Overall, all those aspects made Limbus stand out among other gachas by a huge margin. Like Arknights, Limbus Company doesn't go with a typical casual approach that other gachas do when it comes to the gameplay, and this is also very true to its lineage as a Project Moon game, even though the game is easier and more simplified compared to its predecessors. Boss fights in particular are difficult and can be quite lengthy in Limbus, and they have gone through nerfs almost every other time. This is because Limbus has that old-school RPG design where the difficulty would spike like the GameStop stock whenever a story boss is introduced. Yep, you heard that right, story boss. Unlike your typical gacha where story mode is made as accessible as possible to the point where the bosses can feel like a joke, Limbus goes the other way and makes them a nightmare. It doesn't end at the bosses, though. Mooks in the game can absolutely catch you off guard and give your characters some of the hardest times ever. Sub-bosses are also sometimes overtuned to the point where they outpowered the main boss. And if those aren't enough, the game has this seasonal endgame called Refraction Railway where they put bosses you won't see in the story in a difficult survival rush mode. If you ask someone which gacha game is the most generous and their answer isn't Limbus Company, there are two possible reasons for that. 1. They never played Limbus Company, or 2. They are stupid and should be fed to Mephistopheles. Limbus Company is undoubtedly the most generous gacha game of today. This is because you can practically own every single gacha items from simply grinding for these items called shards, which you can trade for specific characters or weapons. This includes the limited banners called Vergilius because they're only limited during their initial release. That's just plain crazy to see in a gacha game. Like every gacha game after the success of Arknight's integrated strategy, Limbus also has its own roguelike mode called Mirror Dungeon. It is the mode where you'll be able to see the full potential of your characters and then pushing it beyond the boundaries via the collectibles you get in the dungeon. But make no mistake, on hard mode, the dungeon will also hit you back just as hard as the story mode's difficult contents. Mirror Dungeon will be permanently updated every time a major story content drops, and so far it has evolved twice. Each update brings in new collectibles, enemies, events, and bosses. The acquired starting buffs will also be reset every time this happens. There are also minor changes on every update, such as the current select your own dungeon theme system. This roguelike also rewards you not only with the game's pulling currency, but also shards, the currency you use to get the gacha item of your own choice. Basically, you'll be having fun unleashing the full potential of your characters, while also collecting the stuff you need to perpetually never spend a single gacha currency on any banner ever. And not to mention, you can grind on it forever as long as you have the in-game stamina to spend. I mean, come on, you got both Mili and Studio EIM working for the in-game music. My favorite is the soundtrack you're currently listening to right now, the main anthem of Limbus Company, the Guide's leitmotif, and the godly remix of Leviathan's theme. Then there's the Sarajine or Pass On, the season epilogue theme sung by the characters themselves.
Open the curtains, lights on. Don't miss a moment of this experiment. Oh, the book is strange, like clockwork orange. Keep your eyes buttered till the end.
If you're not someone who has been around the Project Moon stuff before, you'll probably be confused on why the fanbase sometimes go way to hype on some occasions, such as the release of Bamboo at Kim's event or any of the Walpurgisnacht stuff. Hell, you're probably confused why this random image of a woman agitates the community. Basically, you'll be missing out on the inner hype of the game if you're unfamiliar with the book, the librarian, the star, and the city. Limbus Company is the most unique gacha game of today with its unusual gameplay structure, atmosphere, and distorting level of generosity. The story isn't verbose all the time, and the game respects your time a lot. It gets a really strong 9 out of 10 from me. If you haven't played this game yet, do try it, you won't regret it. If you're wondering why I didn't give it a higher score despite the game not having any actual weaknesses in particular, it's because on daily basis I don't really get that much excitement out of it. Once I'm done with the story content and the weekly mirror dungeon, I would only log in for a total of 2 to 3 times for the rest of the week for about 30 seconds, then leave it down until the next week, and I can't really give such a game a higher score than that. Anyway, thank you for watching, and glory to Limbus Company.